Everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be chatting about an interesting retort that one would get. Do we matter? Right? Now, stop me if you've heard this one before, right? An atheist will approach you, or an atheist, I think they're the only ones really that ever make this kind of, these are the ones that are really into this sort of scientism, right? Naturalism and things of that sort, materialism. They will say to us, right, if you look out into the universe is this vast thing. It's like millions of light years across. And by comparison to some of the largest planets and some of the largest suns and all of that kind of stuff, you know, our sun is this insignificant little thing. Our Earth is this tiny, stupid little insignificant thing. And you, even compared to the Earth, you're this insignificant little thing. It's like, what makes you think that you matter at all? Right? And what if there was a God, why would he even care about you? Right? There's this absolute this place of gazillions of light years and space and other planets in which there might even be other beings and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's basically, if you're a Christian, you are arrogant to think that the God of all that would care about you at all, right? Let alone love you and come here to die for you. How do we answer this question? Because, as it so happens, the universe is very, very big. Like, really, really big. We can't even imagine how big it is. But here's a funny thing, ladies and gentlemen. If we had to really, let's pick this out, pick this apart. It's like, since when did any doctrine of size invalidate what is or is not meaningful? Right? For example, think about your home. The vast majority of us don't live in magnificent palaces. The size of your home is irrelevant to the fact that that home is your home and nowhere else is your home. That's my home. It's simply ludicrous to think that size has anything to do with what is meaningful. It's just, it's stupid, really, right? And here's the interesting thing, right? There's a strange, how can you say, presupposition, maybe, who knows what to call it. But now, you never hear anyone make this argument. You know, they say, well, there's all this wasted space out there, right, where there's nothing in it. So not only are you insignificant, but God's a little bit wasteful. You know, there's all this empty space. Now, here's the problem, right? You never hear anyone say this about the atom, for example, right? Where everyone seems to be quite convinced that atoms are very, very important. But now, if you have to look at the atom very, very carefully, right? No one ever makes this kind of the objection, well, all the wasted space in an atom means that God is capricious and wasteful. Because here's the thing, right? The atom doesn't actually consist of a whole heck of a lot, right? So, as an illustration, 99% of the volume of an atom, right, is contained within the nucleus, right? So you have the little nucleus, and around it you've got a little cloud of electrons all over the place, flying around. Cool. Now, how big is all of this stuff, right? Let's say you took the atom, the nucleus of the atom, and blew it up and made it the size of a marble, right? Where would the edge of that cloud of electrons be? Well, if you blew it up to the size of a marble, the edges of the electron cloud would be about a football field away from you, from this nucleus. So put a marble in the middle of a football field, walk to the edge of the football field, and that would be where the edge of the atom of the electron cloud, that's where it would be. And here's the thing, right? When it comes to these very small things, we understand that the distance, far from being something wasteful, is actually a design feature, right? The atoms, the way the atoms are structured, with the distance from that the electrons are from the nucleus and all that sort of thing, these are design features. They have to be that distance away from the nucleus, right? It's a design feature. So, right, if there's all that kind of wasted space, right? We wouldn't call that wasted space, first of all. So how do we know, ladies and gentlemen, that in order to have life on this planet, that the size of the universe itself is not a necessary design feature? Well, you don't know that fact. And if we had to look at the very small, then it would be logical to assume that if we had to extrapolate and say, well, in a similar vein, right, if we have to make an analogy, you have the sun. Imagine the sun is the nucleus of the atom, and you've got all the planets spinning around it, right? That's like a macrocosm of what's going on in the atom, right? We need different kinds of scientific laws. So you've got Newtonian mechanics, and you've got Einstein's theory of relativity, where they're trying to unify these things. They don't quite all explain everything, but you can sort of take the analogy and, what about, we can even study stellar mechanics, for example, right? And we know, for example, how far are we from the sun? No one would ever say that the distance between the Earth and the sun is wasted space. No, it's necessary space. It's a design feature, because if we were any closer or any further away, we couldn't have life on this planet at all. So why is then that not extrapolated to everything else in the universe, and rather say that far from life being an insignificant, us being from insignificant little things, we must be so important that it takes all of that in order to support our existence just here on this planet. Looking at the exact same evidence, but coming up with a completely different philosophical conclusion. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever to assume that because the universe is so grand that we are so small by comparison, it's a completely irrelevant doctrine to say that then that means we are then irrelevant and small and insignificant. That is absolute garbage. Is absolute garbage. No doctrine of the size of things overthrows any doctrine about what is or is not meaningful to a person. Right? Think about your wedding ring. It's just a stupid little circle made of some precious metal or whatever it is. Why is it meaningful? What gives it its meaning? It's insignificant in the grand scheme of things, this little wedding ring. But that says nothing about why it means so much to a particular person. And it's that simple, right? Size and grandeur and scope say nothing about meaning. Nothing at all, right? So, for those of you that might have been dissuaded by that atheistic argument, next time they will try to come up with that, say, sorry mate, I'm not playing that game. That's a silly philosophical, it's a philosophical conclusion, it's not a scientific one. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Just because a scientist makes a particular statement, it doesn't mean that that statement is then a scientific statement. No. And this is one of the biggest problems with scientists, right? And a lot of big problem with people is they think, well, if a scientist made the statement, it means that that's a scientific statement. No, rubbish. Scientists are human beings as well. They make philosophical statements all the time. In fact, the vast majority of statements that scientists make on these particular issues are philosophical statements, not scientific ones. Not by any stretch of the imagination. And if they were being consistent with their science, they would realize that the space of the universe, right? If we have to be consistent, if we look at the atom, if we look at our solar system and all these kinds of things, and at no point do we ever say that the space that exists in between these things are wasted space. No, we understand that these are design features. And if we're being consistent, then the size of the universe is most likely a design feature. It's that big because it has to be. In order maybe to support life here. Who knows? Or maybe there's life elsewhere. Who knows, man? So, as far as I'm concerned, the Christian view that we are meaningful is in fact supported by the fact that the universe is so massive. Because maybe that's what it takes for us to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that helps you out with that little argument with that we're often presented with. Yeah, and if you like that, please subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. Will help me out, will help others out. Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. Thank you for your viewership. Cheerio.